Hey everybody, Chris. Wanted to revisit the discussion about the investability of One Piece. All the disclaimers, not financial advice, blah, blah, blah. We're just talking shop here. I posted this original video the end of 2024, so I think it was December 30th, and had pretty good feedback on it. I appreciate the discussion. I appreciate the likes. And it seems as though many people kind of are following things or share kind of my sentiment as well. And so I wanted to revisit that because it's been almost 60 days and things have changed. So let's take a look here. So good old Romance Dawn, first set. So what are we on now? The 11th set? I think we're on the 11th set, about to have the 12th. And most people know by now you had blue and white bottom printings. The first wave known as blue bottoms, and then the reprint wave known as the white bottoms. And then you have errata and pre-errata cards. Pre-errata meaning first print, even though it's believed that there are 3 prints of these cards, but 2 with the text changes, the verbiage changes on the cards. And so some things have started to change and some things have happened, and the graphs have started to go up. It's very interesting, actually. It appears as though you'll see this as I was going back and looking through the sets that we looked at, the prices, the price comparisons and everything. It appears as though mid to late December of 2024 was about the bottom for a lot of these sealed boxes, these sealed booster boxes for One Piece. So it's kind of funny that I made a video pretty much near the bottom of One Piece because a lot of things, as you'll see, have gone up over the last 30 to 90 days. So, again, Romance Dawn, first set, this, base set, if you will. We have the first sets of leader cards here with Zoro, Daffy, Law, Luffy, Croc, and then there's Odin and Kaido. Oh, yeah, and King. So those are all your original leaders. And again, some people were discussing my pronunciation, Monkey D. Luffy. If I was referring to him as Monkey or even Trafalgar as Law. It's just, it's how I discuss things locally and in my sort of circle, what we refer to them as. So it was no disrespect or anything like that. I wasn't trying to do it just for clicks, but I refer to Doflamingo as Daffy. I just always have Zoro, Luffy, or Monkey, Law, Zoro. So it's absolutely no disrespect, or I wasn't, again, trying to rage bait there. But let's go ahead and let's look at these boxes. So the blue bottoms have moved up. December, they were right around $1,000 even. And they have gone up, and now we're pushing 1,200. So if you look at recent sales, we'll take out the pictures. 1,200, 1,250, 1,225, 1,200, 1,200. So I would say, yes, that is a 20% move in the last basically 60 days. They were just around $1,000, and so they've gone up, nearly 20% in the last 60 days. eBay is going to look very, very similar as well. So, when we're thinking about, okay, if we're buying and holding these boxes long term, okay, so the first thing that started it off, first print, first wave, everything, these boxes are doing rather well. And one thing I wanted to bring up as well is I don't think, each TCG and CCG is its own animal, but I did want to bring up, I don't think it's right to compare. So if we're looking at a track record and we're looking at history and we're thinking, okay, where can this go? Where has it been? Oh, these are like these boxes. This is base set. Oh, this is fossil. I don't think it's fair to compare to Pokemon base set or even ABU era Magic. But we do have some recent examples. And I think Flesh and Blood is a very, very close comparison that if we really wanted to look at things and we really wanted to look at, okay, a TCG or a CCG that has a pretty good player base, because Flesh and Blood does have a very good player base. Not as big in the United States as it is internationally, but has a pretty devout player base. I think that's a pretty apt comparison. Flesh and Blood's been around 5 years or so now. It was 2019 when those original boxes came out. And so I think that's a very apt comparison. And so then we go, okay, well, if we think that that is the case, let's go look. And I thought about this as I had everything laid out. But just having a background. So I was involved, Rudy, early on. I did not get any of the alpha printings of these, but I got them shortly after, later in the summer, around September, when Crucible of War came out. And so I did end up getting early Flesh and Blood stuff. So I was around during this, the whole Tales of Aria, Monarch, all that, where these boxes got printed to oblivion, prices crashed. Again, there are a lot of parallels with how Flesh and Blood grew, because I think Flesh and Blood is on its 15th set or so, 20th, something like that. And so there's a lot of parallels how Flesh and Blood grew. They grew too fast in the boom, the COVID boom, printed a bajillion boxes of Monarch, Aria, etc., and it just completely crashed the prices and stalled those prices for literally like 2 years. Just out of curiosity, what are Monarch booster boxes at? 160 bucks. Oh, that's unlimited. Hold on. There we go. $50. $50. That is crazy that these are $50 a box, because a case price of first edition is $215. I remember buying these for $300 to $400 a box when it came out. So again, I think Flesh and Blood is a very close comparison, because history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. And so if we're going to look at other card games that have been out in the last 5 years, again, Flesh and Blood does not have the IP One Piece does. Absolutely not. I will concede that. Flesh and Blood does not have the live action Netflix series, which season 2 is about to come out. But I think this does provide a pretty good base for, if Flesh and Blood can do this and maintain, and they got the print runs right, because we went through a massive reprint wave in 2024 of One Piece where it cratered a ton of these boxes. You had Pillars, Kingdoms, Wings saw multiple waves, and those prices, Pillars was at like 260, 275 bucks a box. And, I think Pillars is all the way down. I think it's still like 160 now. So again, this isn't a one-for-one comparison, but I believe Flesh and Blood is probably the closest comparison we have to One Piece being around a little longer than 2 years now. Again, Flesh and Blood's been around 5. And so let's look at some of these first edition boxes from Wrath and Arcane Rising. If it'll load. Open. Already open. There we go. Hey, why won't that open? There we go. Okay. All right. So if we're looking, if they'll even have them listed, I don't even know if they will have first edition boxes on here. They probably won't, just because there probably are none for sale on TCG Player. Okay, so there's Arcane. Okay, so Arcane. So this is the second set. So this isn't even the first set. So Arcane Rising, and for reference, Rudy, Alpha Investments, just did a sale where he sold boxes of Arcane, and I think he had them priced around $1,100 as well. So open market, $1,100, $1,100, $1,100, and there's just none. There's just none. There's none left on the market. So, $10,000 to $15,000, you could wipe this market out. But I would be curious. We might go over here to eBay because I want to see. Let's go over to eBay here. A little sneak peek of what's going on later. All right, let's go to Welcome to Wraith Booster Box Alpha, and let's see what comes up. We're doing this right away here. Okay, there we go. $2,000, $2,000, 23, 23, 27. All right, let's look at solds. Sealed case, 8K. There we go. 18, 17, 1800 for the first thing. Welcome to Wraith. And this is Fab 1.0 as it's referred to. They're in the Fab 2.0 block where they've kind of changed a lot of the play mechanics and everything, and got the printing underground. So again, history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. But when you've got first edition Flesh and Blood boxes selling for $1,800, and we come over here and we look at blue bottom Romance Dawn boxes selling for $1,100, I think it's safe to say they're probably going to keep going. Again, I know that was kind of a little sidetrack there, but I really felt as though it illustrated an important point where if we're really looking at this and we're really looking at the longevity of Flesh and Blood compared to One Piece, I think it's very fair to compare those. So again, all right, so those are at 1,100, 1,200. I think they're going to keep running. The market on these, again, pretty shallow. Pretty shallow. So 6, 7, 8. So you have 8, 11. You have 11 boxes at $1,250 or under. You know, again, 15 grand completely changes the landscape of this market. And I know 15 grand seems like a lot of money to a lot of people because it is. But 15 grand in the grand scheme of things completely destroys this market and completely reprices this entire market. Now, once you get into these bigger boxes, I think any boxes, this is Pokemon, etc., $300 or above, I think you're playing in an entirely kind of different playground. You're not playing in a person that just loves the cards. They love a box. They want to just buy a box, maybe open it or keep it on their shelf for a while. You start getting into this range, it's a completely different playground. And so these markets do kind of operate a little separate from everything. So just because these boxes are going up doesn't mean the entire market is, but it appears as though the entire market is moving. So blue boxes, blue bottoms going up, white bottoms. Okay. Again, I did my video right around here when they were just under 300 a box. They're now at 375. So they have moved pretty steadily here. Go all the way back. So this is about 1230 was when I did my video. 289 and 300. And they've just proceeded to chugga on up. And they've held basically right around 375. You can see it got rejected just under $400 there. So to get rejected just under $400, not surprising, as these bigger moves, sorry, I have a delivery. Bigger moves like this, when you go from $300 to $400 in a 60-day period, that's a pretty big move. And so, you're looking at a 25% move, 30% move pretty heavily. I mean, it's since come back down to 375. But in a 60-day period, that's not, that's a pretty big move. And so looks like it moved up, got rejected. Sales volume peaked as it was moving up. And as it got up to that $390 to probably $400 in list price, you see the sales volume trail off. And so sales volume has continued to trail off here at 375. These are probably going to stabilize right in here. I mean, Rick's has 20 boxes at 375, so these might retrace to 350. But this would appear to be, if you're looking to pick these up, now might be the time. So again, big move from this, up $100 in 60 days. A box. So blue bottom's moving. One of the things I wanted to do, again, when we look at this set, as I said, you have your original leaders. One of the litmus tests that I have always used when looking at One Piece and trying to figure out in my head, is this going to be a long-term investable thing, was these original leaders, specifically the Monkey D. Luffy leader. This is the card. First print, first wave, pre-errata. This is the leader card that started it all. And so I've watched the PSA 10s of these, because the PSA 10 is going to help us kind of really help factor in the collector market in the more higher end. But also, are people putting a price appreciation, which they should be, on first print or pre-errata? And so I think this Luffy leader card in PSA 10 is a very good card to use as a litmus test, and I've watched it for quite a while now. And so the pre-errata cards for the greater part of the last year have sat between $200 and about $350 in PSA 10, the pre-errata. Now, the funny thing is when you start looking at a bunch of these, this is actually a first print. This is a first print because the verbiage is correct. But some of these will say errata, and they're first print. They don't have the up to verbiage change on them. Let's look and see if this one does. No, that one says up to, so that is errata. That's correct. So you have to be very careful when looking at a lot of these leader cards, because some of them are actually, I'm sure it's whenever somebody submitted them into PSA, they just put them in as the wrong one. And this is, again, always kind of been one of these things the market hasn't fully figured out yet, but I think they're starting to, because, again, these pre-errata PSA 10s, or post-errata PSA 10s, so the reprints, were between $200 and like $350 in a PSA 10 for a long time. And they've started to move up slowly. We'll go over to solds. We'll take a look. So this is one of these where it doesn't have the verb. So you look at the slab and you go, oh, well, it doesn't say errata up here or anything, but it has set up to. So that's not a first print card, despite this label saying that. And so, again, this is where you're going to need some sort of education onto making sure that you know what you're buying, because this is mislabeled. It should say errata on it, and it doesn't. But sold for $385. Go down here. Here we go. Errata, $270. Okay. Another errata, $450. Another one, $450. This one, this is in Canadian dollars, so let's see. That is a first print. That's a first print. So, and that's $450 out of Canada, and that February 7th. So that's relatively cheap. So somebody got a deal there, $450, because they've been going above 500 for a while. Here you go. Here's one. This is first print. Again, first print. Very clear pictures. Labels correct. 700. And somebody just hit the bin on it. 700. The first print leader cards have been selling around the $400 to $500 range for the last year or so. And so these have slowly drifted up now 25 to 50% within about the last 3 to 4 months. I had 2 of these. I sold one, I think I sold it last November maybe. And I got a little over 500 for mine. So, and that was, the market was just starting to move. And so that tells me that the market, the people are getting educated. They understand what errata, pre-errata are. And they're starting to put a pricing premium on these first print cards, recognizing they're not making any more of these. These are special. This is the card. This is the first Luffy leader. This is the card. So, all right. So I just wanted to really illustrate, this is something I've used as a litmus test. The Doffy hasn't really moved as much. So this is a first print. We got 8 hours left on this, and it's already at 500. So I'm suspecting this will sell in that $600 range. It should. So these first print pre-errata Luffy leaders are starting to be appreciated. I would expect these to move closer to $1,000 by the end of the year, quite honestly, just because there's not that many of these around and they keep disappearing. And so simple basic economics is there's not that many for sale. So when they do come up for sale, the price is higher. And that tells me these are ending up in collectors' hands. And as an aside here, I sell a fair amount of slabbed One Piece. I sell a lot international. A lot of it goes international, whether it's Canada, whether it's European or East Asian. I do ship a lot international. And so it's hard to tell if these cards just end up in, higher end collectors in other countries, not just the United States. These cards basically might as well not exist in the United States anymore. And so I do expect this market to continue to thin out, and these continue their trek towards $1,000. I do think this will be the first PSA 10 non-manga $1,000 card. It should be. I know there's some Namis that have pushed close. The romance. Actually, I think that is over 1,000. The first print Nami. This card. I do believe these were over 1,000 there for a while. I don't know if they're there anymore, but I do know they were there for a while. People were paying a pretty penny for those. Last I knew, these had settled around like the 600 to 700 mark, I thought, in the pre-errata ones. So, again, just another tool I use. The Doffies haven't moved that much. They were 250 to 300 a year or so ago, and they've slowly crept up to 400. So over the course of a year, they've crept up 30-ish%. So we've seen some upwards movement of them, but not like the Luffy has moved. But again, this is not an errata card. There was no first print or second print designation on this card. There was no verbiage change. So there's probably not, there's going to be more of these around, even though some of these are first print versus second print, coming from blue bottom and white bottom boxes, but there was no verbiage change to easily recognize them. So there's going to be perceived more of these around because of that. So just a helpful tool, again, I use to help kind of make sense of it all. We move over to Paramount. Paramount in the video, so about 2 months ago, these boxes were around 150, and they are still there. These boxes, for whatever reason, this is literally like the only set that has not moved. And you can look in the last 3 months, it hasn't really done much. 6 months, it's come down. Now, it does look like, when we're reading charts here, when you seem to find higher bottoms, that is an indication that it is going to start to tick up. And so, here we had a big bottom, but then it came down. So if this mirrors what this did, we've kind of already made our cup and we're going to go up now. Selling 4 boxes a day. The market's just not super deep on these. It's just not. Again, a couple $1,000 really wipes this market out and really changes the landscape. You're at $200. What is that? 15 boxes? 15 boxes, and we're up to 200. So, sales volume stayed pretty steady, but it does appear as though, we probably have basically bottomed, and so these are trending up. But again, it's just one of these things where this is like the only set, when I looked at prices, that has not really moved. It's basically stayed flat. But if you believe in this product, this would be a good time to buy these boxes at 150, because the market is shallow. I haven't seen more of these popping up on Twitter and Instagram where people just have cases of these. I haven't seen any more of that. 3 and 4 months ago, I was seeing that. You were seeing these sort of waves of these boxes come back out again. So I don't know if there's that many more of these just sitting around out there and people waiting for the price to tick up. So it might be a pickup on these. As far as the cards in the set, the leaders are kind of, not as popular leaders as the first set. Newgate, Sanji, and for this Luffy to be, this alt, to be one of the top hits in the set. This Borsalino was super high at one point. I think it got reprinted. But the Uta was super high at one point. That was like a $50 or $60 card at one point. But again, we're going back a year and a half or so ago. And then, of course, the Ace manga. So, Paramount, it's just kind of flat, just doing its thing. But if, you wanted to buy boxes, it looks like this would be the time to buy boxes, because I would not be surprised for those. Like I said, a couple $1,000 changes that entire market from 150 to 200 a box. Okay. Third set, Pillars. Again, these have come all the way down. Like I said, 260 before. They've come all the way down. It does appear as though they've kind of bottomed out in this 130 to 140 range and are appearing to start to tick up. Again, market just shallow. There's not that many boxes. Okay, you got 2 cases there at 200 a box. But until you get there, You basically have a case at 150. Yeah, you've got a case worth kind of jumbled up around 150, and then it's 200 a box. And there appears to be less of this available than Romance. Pillars, I like Pillars. It was the first wanted poster set. I have a sequential of these. I've gotten a couple sequentials of these. And then, of course, they just came out with the new wanted posters. So I think these do look cool. Displayed, slabbed up, displayed on a shelf. These wanted posters look really, really cool. And then these leaders, they haven't really done an art set like this either. Where these are textured. These do look really good in person. And it has the weakest manga, which is Soja King. So that's also probably why these boxes are a little suppressed comparatively, just because that manga hit is just... unfortunately, people don't seem to care about that one. It's the worst manga, but has some good cards in it. And good leaders, the wanted posters. I think it's a cool set. I think it will age well just because of these wanted posters, personally. Because this is very indicative of the show, the wanted posters, and I think this invokes those styles really well. It is interesting because you don't see Arlong much. He doesn't have that many cards out. Katakuri has a fair amount, but like Iceberg, Kuro, you have some characters in this set that there's just not a lot of characters, or not a lot of cards overall, but yeah, kind of just doing its thing. Kingdoms. This also marks, I will say this, in regards to the art, when you look at Pillars in those first three sets, the arts were, I don't want to say bland, but they were a little more bland compared to starting with Kingdoms on forward. And you'll look at these last few sets, at the Memorial Booster, Two Legends, 500 Years, how bright and vibrant the colors they're choosing to use in these cards. And Kingdoms kind of really started that. With Rebecca Alt, this boa actually has swirls in the background of it, and so it shines and pops really, really well. Vivi and the Daffy, both of these backgrounds look very, very good in person. They shimmer well. The Law has these silver swirls kind of in the back, just like the boa as well. And then the Yamato, very bright yellow. The Sabo, very bright colors. The Newgate and Magellan and Sakazuki, same thing. They've got these silver sort of swirls in the back of them, and so they look very, very good in person. This Daffy looks really cool. So Kingdoms, in my opinion, really kind of started this bright, flamboyant color to the cards, which they had it before, but I mean, this, using these pinks and purples and yellows, the art really, really changed with Kingdoms, in my opinion. And the boxes, again, looks like we bottomed out around the end of December, and we've proceeded to go up about 10-15% since then. There was a lot of supply of this. This and Pillars were when I was buying cases at the time, because you would get case discounts, and they were not $150 a box. And I know when we got the reprint waves, this was one of those that got a reprint wave and really kind of chopped this price down, because it was chugging to 200. And then when we got the reprint waves, it kind of just filtered out. But again, we start looking at this market, look at the sales volume pick up, sales volume pick up, sales volume pick up, and these just keep going up, keep going up, keep going up. So it looks like it's kind of hit this 150 to 160 wall. But once it sells through these boxes here, about a case worth, I think 160 to 175. 175 is going to be the next stop for Kingdoms. Wings, a box that just, again though, look at the colors, the color palette of these sets now. Way more bland, those first 2 and 3 sets, compared to bright pinks, bright yellows, bright greens. You have the Buggy alt, and then the Nami alt, or Treasure Rare. They noticeably started to change. I mean, even the leader cards were a much brighter tone than the first Luffy, Zoro, Law, all those original leader cards that were kind of 2 and 3 color tone palettes, but they were toned down. These are intentionally very, very bright. You've got the Zoro manga, but boxes on these have really started to move. Again, end of December, 115, 120, and now we're up in 140 land on boxes. So those have moved 15, 20% in 60 days. Doesn't appear to be a ton. I haven't seen a ton of these sitting around. I know when the reprint wave happened again last year, May and June, and that filtered out. This June, July is when the reprint waves hit for everything. But you can see it's just slowly laddered up from $87 a box, and it's almost doubled up now from the middle of last year. And so, 100% return on buying things a year ago is pretty good. So we're just continuing to build a case here where the big caveat is if Bandai does not reprint these into the ground like they've done with Dragon Ball, like Yu-Gi-Oh has done, if they can avoid that, these boxes will continue to do and appreciate nicely and just let the free market kind of go. I'm hoping they've finally gotten their printing numbers in line. But yeah, 15, 20% move here in the last 60 days. All right. 500 years. I missed a set. We just looked at this, right? Yes, we missed. Hold on. Is it not? Oh, no. Hold on. Stay with me a second here. We missed Awakening. My bad. So Awakening and Memorial are by far and away the two strongest sets when it comes to card value in the sort of newer block of One Piece. And the one obvious correlation is that you have multiple mangas and then you have the Oda signature card. And so, of course, this is going to carry these box prices up. Again, this was another one that got a massive reprint wave right here in July. Massive reprint wave. Dumped the boxes. I remember when the set came out, boxes were $200 to $250. And everybody hated it because it was so expensive, but they bought it. They climbed almost to $300 a box, and then the reprint wave came in July. Crashed them all the way down, 125, 130, and they've just kind of slowly trickled up. But you can see this sales volume is just crazy. 40 boxes a day, 30, 50, 60, 97 boxes 2 weeks ago. 100 boxes. A couple days span. So, this market is getting obliterated. And I think I picked up a few around $150. I was in one of these dips, kind of back in here. They dipped clear down to $150. Back in here somewhere. I snagged a couple. Might have been September, maybe. But this market is thinning out. These boxes are creeping towards 200. If a reprint wave does not happen, we have a case worth of boxes on the open market, and now they're at 200. Now, that's interesting that this person has 150 boxes. Because that would be, 12 cases? 12 cases. Wouldn't surprise me if somebody has that many. Because I do know that people bought heavy on these reprint waves. I do know a lot of people that bought many cases when it dropped down to 125, 150. And they were right to do so. I wish I would have moved a little heavier, recognizing at the time that when you get a set with 3 mangas, an Oda signature, and then you have all these SPs and everything, there's very good reason why these boxes are what they are, because you could rip open a manga in a box, and not only that, get multiple SPs that are over $100 or around 100, and then all these leader cards, which help supplement too, at 20, $30 a pop. So, yeah, again, another case worth. Somebody takes a couple thousand, wipes these boxes out. We're at $200 a box. So, all right, Future Booster. This has been kind of the redheaded stepchild that's been very meh. As far as I know, there aren't a ton of playable cards in this. I know that could be changing. I know Jinbei's been used a bunch. but then also there's nothing, it's got the boa manga in it, but that's kind of, if it didn't have a boa, like if you threw Soji King in this, I think these boxes would be $80 a box, $75 a box. It's a very meh set. I love the Daffy. I love the Luffy, but just it's been very meh. But it's been a steady Eddy. It has been a steady Eddy. Just chugga, chugga, chugga. The last 6 months, it's up 30%. Since I filmed, they were $100 a box. They're basically up 20% now. Again, that's a pretty decent move in 60 days. All right. Memorial. These boxes have, it was a small wave. The initial printing was smaller. This is anecdotal. This is my opinion because I don't have printing numbers. But based on everything from watching the market for a couple years and then seeing this set come out, this set appeared to not be printed into the ground like a lot of the other sets were initially. And I think this shows. This shows if Bandai is just going to print one wave or one wave with a small restock wave, you let the free market do its thing, and it's just going to do that. It is just going to do that. Release right there, beginning of May, and has just slowly bottomed, bottomed around 115, and just, the sticker's on mine. Yeah, I paid $125 at my LGS when it came out, because that was market. And but it has just slowly, just steady eddied away. 200 December 30th is up $50. So, it's up about 25% in 60 days. And again, there is no supply of these boxes. None. Just none. I mean, a case worth, and you buy a case worth, and you're basically to $275 a box, $300. So, one of the things that scares me about this, because, this has been a thing now as I've been going through this, is basically one case changes this market. One case worth changes this market. One case changes this market. One scary thing is if these markets get too thin, I think Bandai has no choice but to reprint these boxes. If these boxes are going to go to 300, and this set came out May of last year, hasn't even been out a year, and they're $300 boxes, I would almost expect Bandai to hit a reprint wave on these. Because clearly the market can take it. The market wants it. And so how do you satisfy that market? So I would not be a bit surprised. And this is where, again, we kind of go into, history, it doesn't repeat, it rhymes. We're looking at Pokemon and looking at these reprint waves. Is Bandai going to reprint for 2 years similar to Pokemon? Or are they going to look at, the first 3 sets of One Piece are completely off the table, but then they're looking at secondary pricing on a lot of these boxes. Maybe not Pillars, maybe not Kingdoms, but you start looking at 6, 7, 8 in those boxes that are 200, 250. They start approaching 250, because that's when they reprinted last year, was when Pillars and Kingdoms were all, Pillars was approaching 275, Kingdoms is over 200. That's when the reprints hit. And so I'm curious to see if we are going to see a massive reprint wave of these past 4 to 5 sets here in May or June this year. But again, that will help us build history moving forward to help provide informed decision making when it comes to when to move in on these boxes. If you're going to buy these boxes, if you're going to hold these boxes, what does the long-term value of these boxes look? Is Bandai always, now if we get reprint waves in May and they're reprinting Paramount War and Pillars and Kingdoms, I might put my hands up and be like, I can't. I mean, we're 2 years out, 2.5 years out on some of these sets, and they're reprinting these sets. That's a hard pill to swallow when it comes to if you're really looking at building positions and investing in something. But I would not be shocked if the last 4 or 5 sets get reprints. And I would almost expect to see them, because you can't have these boxes within a year going to $300. That's going to make a lot of people angry. And quite frankly, there's just too much money on the table for them not to reprint at distro, raise distro prices, and then LGSs can sell them for 175 or whatever. So there's too much money to be made. So, and then 2 legends here. This was the cheapest set. This, I have maintained, this has been an undervalued set. I know the leader cards are very meh, but you have some pretty good cards. You know, you have Raleigh, you have the Raleigh manga, you have an alt, you have, you know, Bonnie, Tashigi. This is Tashigi's first SP, I think. Gecko we had already seen. Bonnie, I think this might be Bonnie's first SP too. And Charlotte's. Maybe it was all 3 of those. I know we've had other alt printings, and I know there's been like some winter cards and stuff from competition with them, but you've got the Monkey Treasure Rare, the Nami. Everybody loves Chopper. For these to be $87 boxes, there's a lot of value to be ripped out of these boxes. Your EV on these boxes is probably easily $50 to $60 because there's a ton of rares, you know, in that basically, like, you know, you start looking at these. I mean, it's an SR, but, you know, $5 SRs. There's a $4 rare, a $5 rare, $7 SR, $8 SR. $13 SR. I mean, that's a parallel printing. Those are parallels. But, you know, when you just start looking at the rares and SRs, you know, these $1 cards, $2 cards add up pretty quick because I'm going to guess you're probably going to pull in a box. You'll probably pull maybe a play set of those 4 to 6, 4 to 6, like you're going to pull a lot. And then you start adding some of these, you know, even though they're alt SRs, but I mean, there's a lot of value to be had in this box. And so, again, I said it in the last video, I bought a fair amount of these when they were at $65. I think they were 65 shipped. I think I paid 58 and then shipping. We'll just call it 65 bucks. And this was the most depressed set out of all of the One Piece sets that had come out. And when we looked at this at the end of December, these were about 70 to 75 bucks. So they're up about 10% in the last 60 days. And this supply is getting obliterated. We've equaled in the last month, we've equaled the amount available versus amount sold. In the last 3 months, you know, that really skews heavy, you know, 3.5x. The amount has sold that's available on the market, and 20 boxes a day, just chugging right along. This is going to be a $100 box probably in the next 30 days, if I had to guess. As the market sits right now, you got, 18, 3, 4, I mean, we've got about 5 or 6 cases here, 7 cases, 8. We've probably got about 10 cases until we get to $100 a box, but it's going there. All right, PRB. Again, very similar to Awakening. You have multiple manga hits. These are popular characters between Shanks and Luffy. Buggy and Teach they're mid-tier, but I like Buggy. But so multiple manga hits, and then we have the return of the wanted posters. And these wanted posters, I mean, and these SPs look amazing. They made them look like playing cards here. They look very, very good. Again, this goes back to what I said earlier. The art, the color of these cards has become a lot more vibrant. The artists appear to be taking a lot more liberty at using brighter colors. They pop. The textured art on these cards is amazing. But these wanted cards, we'll look at Luffy and Shanks here, have done nothing but go up. I have a couple sets off looking for sequentials because I have a sequential wanted poster set from Pillars as well, like I said. So I want sequentials in these. When I bought mine, they were about 115, 120. and they are up to, it's basically a $200 card, $185 card now, and it's touched 200. So more getting listed, which means people are ripping some. But, you know, the same with this, just up 50%, 60%, you know. I think when I bought mine, yeah, they were about 80. And now they're just $150 raw. So this set, if we do get a reprint wave, this would be one of these where I would move heavy into, because I think it's going to do what Awakening did, except I think it's going to do way more than that, because hopefully they don't reprint this into the dirt like they did Awakening. But yeah, this would be a set I would not mind moving in on. If we get some reprint waves here. I mean, there's a ton between 150 and 160, so it's going to be here for a little bit. But you look at that 3 month, I mean, my goodness. You know, that's a lot of volume. That is a lot of boxes that have moved. You can see that the sales volume has slowed as we've gotten up towards this 160 mark. It kind of chugged, and then we've gotten up to 160 here, and then the sales volume has just slowed down. And so that tells me that the market is kind of taking a little breather here, going, yeah, 160 might be a bit too much for these right now. But I got to tell you, the value's there. The value's there, especially, you know, if you're buying and ripping a case, 1800. Yep, 16. I mean, they're slowly moving up, slowly 10%. They've moved up 10% or so. So again, I wouldn't mind seeing reprints of these last 4 or 5 sets. I think they're probably going to do it. I haven't seen an official announcement, but I would be shocked if they don't reprint these. And then if they do reprint them, we now have the first initial block of the first like 5, 6 sets basically to kind of base our decisions off of moving forward. And I like having that information. Like I said, I think this mirrors Awakening very, very well, except I think it's a better set. Because of the poster cards, because of these SPs. I mean, Nami and Boa, those are the waifus everybody wants anyways. You know, you've got another Luffy leader card, a Luffy alt. Teach, if you're a Teach player, black player, like, you know, there's a lot of value to be had just from a playability standpoint as well. So, you know, this set right here is... We get a reprint. I think this is one of those where you're kind of like, okay, yep, I would like as much of that as I can get. And then PRB. So the premium booster set, which was reprints for a lot of cards. But primarily, they brought in a lot of these Don cards. A lot of these textured art Don cards. It was kind of a, you know, sort of showcase of, look at all these fantastic Don cards that we can have. So if you want to go max value, bling out your decks, here you go. And then they hit us with the reprint mangas. I don't expect them to reprint this. It's already a reprint set. I don't expect them to fire the printers up again and go, you know what, let's reprint more of the reprint set. I just don't envision that. But to be honest, I don't know. Again, this is kind of one of these things where when you're in the moment and these boxes are, you know, when these boxes came out at 150, I think I paid $125 for mine locally. You know, yeah, it's easy to look at this and go, woulda, shoulda, coulda. It's up 50% in 3 months. Should have bought everything. And then when you see how popular the gold border Don cards are, makes a lot of sense. And so I don't, you know, beat myself up about these types of things. Again, I come from the Pokemon. I've been around Pokemon Kickstarter with Sorcery, MetaZoo, Flesh and Blood, not really so much Magic. And so I've just kind of learned to not chase So not saying that these boxes won't go up, but at $250 a box, it starts to make me a little nervous because I know what reprint waves can do to these boxes, and it can crater them clear down to 125 to 150. And based on previous history, those boxes are going to stay there for a year or so. And so, do I want to risk tying up a ton of money where if they reprint these here in 2 months, and now I'm sitting on my hands with this for a year where this does little to nothing, even worse, I lost money, and it takes 2-3 years to recoup the money. So, but yeah, reprints come. There's plenty of sets to be looking at to go, okay. I get it now. But yeah, if you just look at the color palettes of these, kind of a little darker, a little more bland, not as poppy with the vibrant colors. And then you go to, let's just go to Emperors. Then you look at some of these and look at the greens, the yellows, even the purples are a little brighter, the reds, the yellows, and the blues, just a lot brighter color palettes that they're using now. And I'm sure that was probably an intentional thing on their end as far as art went, to really make this sort of a premium card game. Certainly everybody knows the card quality is amazing, but yeah, those are my thoughts. Like I said, about a 2-month update. It would appear as though when I filmed that video at the end of December, we had kind of seen a more recent bottom of some of these boxes, and things are starting to appreciate nicely, which is what I like to see. So things that I'm looking out for on the horizon, word of reprints. If we know reprints are coming, like last time, they told us which sets the reprints are coming on. So that was very, very helpful. If reprints are coming, I'm going to specifically target a couple of these sets that have a lot of mangas and have a lot of, this with the wanted posters. That to me is a no-brainer. These cards have already gone, the Luffy's a $200 card. I think they're going to reprint these just because these cards have kind of already went, and they would be foolish to leave that much money on the table. I don't think, hopefully they reprint these. If this follows a similar trail to like what Pillars did, where Pillars went to 260, 275 by the time we got the reprints, and then it came all the way back down to 150, 160. I don't know that these will be as stagnant for as long, just because this has the multiple mangas you can hit, along with the SPs, along with the leaders, and along with the wanted posters. So Emperors, if we can get a reprint, that might be one that I really, really move on, because it's got everything. It's got everything you would want, as far as long-term collectability, and having playable cards as well. So, again, I appreciate all you. Please like, subscribe, drop the comments down below. A lot of great discussion in the last video. I really appreciated that. And again, my pronunciations of cards are not to slander or sort of intentionally misuse or slander any sort of culture or anything like that. I'm just literally just pronouncing them. So appreciate you guys. Thank you. Let me know some feedback down in the comments, and I'll keep them coming.